I promise I will have a proper intro in just a few, but I just wanted to go over the brushes and kind of what I got in like an unboxing of them. So these actually came in a box. It's probably like maybe by a 10 by 12 box, cardboard box, and then inside was this envelope here, and the brushes came in looking like this. So here's all the brushes. Okay, now done up Kendra after using these brushes is gonna take over. Friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Kendra Morgan. I'm a makeup enthusiast, and I put out weekly content centered around makeup and the economics of makeup. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, then please consider subscribing and liking this video. Let's jump right in. So this is going to be the Rephr brush review, and I got them sitting right here in front of me, all of them. Finally! This is a hot mess. Oh, it's a hot mess. Okay, I want to preface this by saying I did I participated, I don't even know what it's called, but you buy one, you get one free. So basically, if you're willing to wait 10 to 12 weeks for them to ship directly from Japan, you can get half off, essentially, or you can buy one brush and then you get the credit for the brush that you purchased. So that's what I agreed to do, and it really helped out in the sense that it made every brush that I bought almost half price. So that was really enjoyable. Now I will say that I bought these in late December, early January, with the intentions that they would arrive April, May, and so I wasn't a bit worried about any of that. I wanted to go on a no buy or low buy, and so I was going to try and get to the April, May point where then I would go ahead and, you know, purchase some consumables for like my lashes for my clients and stuff like that. So that was the intentions behind that. Was kind of going to be my, you know, first break in the no buy, and I bought them and then I never really paid 2 cents of mind as to when they would arrive or anything like that. But I will say that the Rephr team did do a really great job keeping in contact throughout the whole entire process, and then when the pandemic hit, they also kept in great contact during that time as well. So with that being said, I do kind of want to address some of the articles that I encountered on a subreddit. It is the MUA CJ discussion board, and this discussion board states that Temptalia has 0 plans to purchase or review Rephr brushes, and then they open the discussion up for thoughts. So if any of you guys don't know who Temptalia is, her name is Christine. She's a blogger. I think she started a long time ago. I know that much. Am I losing my lash? I probably am. Anyways, she's a blogger. If you've ever researched like a good dupe or researched any type of brushes or anything like that, she's always one of the first ones that pops up in my searches for people that have done a really extensive review. So that's Temptalia, and she has no plans to review these brushes, and she states, and I kind of want to go through what she states, and then I want to either counter or kind of agree with that based off of my current experiences with the brand thus far. She says, sorry, I have no plans to purchase the Rephr brushes. Their marketing spiel origin story was so off-putting, and I have no desire to spend money at that brand when there are hundreds of brushes I haven't reviewed from other brush brands. I would agree with that. I mean, Rephr's only started up recently, and she's got a lot of other brushes that she wants to review. That sounds like a really great, you know, she could have left it at that even. They ask her to elaborate on the origin and why it's so off-putting, and in one of her Haki Hodo brush reviews, she states why she does not want to review these brands. She says their tagline of luxury makeup brushes designed by 3 engineers who knew nothing about makeup and just a general patronizing tone, as engineers who loved so Rephr expresses they are engineers who loved efficiency. They were not satisfied with the idea that a person needs 12 brushes to do beautiful makeup. The same patronizing concept of brands that say you're wasting your time, you don't need all that, wear less makeup. So in one sentence, the community is being oversold with these brush sets and how many brushes they should have, and then they simultaneously offer face and eye sets. So here's my experience. I worked with a couple of engineers in a previous life, and I will say this, they really don't convey themselves in a very good manner. It's just kind of the general mentality of engineers that I personally worked with. Now, the article goes on and states that some of the respondents in this article are engineers themselves, and I would say that they have probably a better understanding of how engineers' minds works and functions. But I will say that they've always come across towards me as more assertive, straightforward, to the point, and oftentimes misunderstood. In this particular concept, I think that this is probably a continuous improvement on Rephr's part, where they probably should have hired somebody to kind of put together their story just a little bit better. And I think they would have executed the story a lot better. I see Rephr as a brand that has bridged the gap between luxury brand brushes with the mid-range brushes. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead and link in the eye and down below my brush classifications. Take a couple minutes, go watch that, and then come back and finish this. But what I state there is that there's 3 different categories. Basically, your category 1, which is your El Cheapos, category 2, which is your individual brushes or brush sets, but they start to get more detailed and they're of higher quality. And then you've got your luxury brands, which are not necessarily better in quality, but oftentimes boast a higher price point. I also group Fude brushes in that category. So any of the Japanese made brushes, I would go ahead and categorize them in my luxury, my type 3 brushes. So Rephr is definitely a type 3, but they do set their price point more in the range of the type 2 brushes that I'm thinking of. And I really feel like and this might be adding some drama to the situation, but I really feel like they took over MAC's spot. When MAC decided to go fully synthetic, I believe they then sold out their line to a Chinese manufacturer. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it might be Anissa International that private labels for MAC now, but that's, I guess, another chapter. They kind of took over MAC's brush line, and they continued on with the good quality brushes. They are a little bit higher price point than most of my 2B brushes are, but if you remember, I do categorize my MAC brushes as 2B, so they're natural fiber brushes, and they can be bought individually. Now, MAC never sold any of their brushes in a set that are full-size brushes, except for one set, and that was not at a discount or anything like that. But anyways, they took over that, and that's what I feel like they did. They took over that. Now, did they execute correctly? No. Does that surprise me? Not at all. They're engineers. That's kind of what I suspect. A lot of the replies that I saw in there state that, I think this is what what Tim Talia writes. She says, for that matter, a lot of the go-to brush ranges that are more affordable, like ColourPop, e.l.f., Wet n Wild, I'm not hearing from readers about the brushes falling apart. I had some e.l.f. brushes and they fell apart, and then I recommended e.l.f. brushes to a family member and they fell apart on her as well. At $1 a piece, that's okay. You're probably not going to really hear people talking about them falling apart. You're just going to hear people going back and buying another $1 brush. Wet n Wild, I've never had any of my brushes fall apart on them. Right now, you can't get any of the ColourPop brush roll set because they sold out, so I really couldn't tell you anything about ColourPop brushes, but they do seem really good. Another brush line that I would boast also would be worth checking out would be the BH Cosmetics. Coastal Scents also sells brushes individually, and those are going to be in my 2B section. So those are all really great, but I will say that I have had those lower end brushes fall apart on me. And I know how to take care of brushes. My Eco Tools brushes that fell apart on me, I will go ahead and blame negligence on that. But as far as moving forward and getting e.l.f. brushes and Real Techniques and those things, those types of brushes, really, you can definitely tell that there's a difference in quality and performance there. So if you are a person, again, like I stated before, luxury is kind of more of that experience. You are marketing yourself towards people who enjoy the experience of applying makeup, or high-end makeup artists who, you know, really differentiate between brush to brush. I don't feel like Rephr is a brand that has a brush that, you know, you buy 1 or 2 brushes and it does all your makeup for you. I don't see that being it, except for maybe their number 17 brush. It can do quite a few things for me, but I think that they are a brush line that basically replaced the MAC line when they switched over to synthetic. That's what I feel. I'm gonna stick to it, but I just kind of wanted to address that before I got into this, because I wanted people to understand yet one more opinion and one more viewpoint as to why the brand might be the way they are. Now, I also state that I have experience with the company. My experience with the company this far is that they kept in great contact with me the entire time that my brushes were, you know, en route to shipment. So what happened was, when the pandemic occurred, they shipped all of their brushes to another warehouse that would be able to work and manufacture and ship out the brushes so that I would receive them on time. Why I didn't receive them directly from Japan, not exactly sure, because they said that they would ship directly from Japan. So basically what I was purchasing was back ordered brushes, and if you were willing to receive back order brushes, then you could receive a discount basically. Also, I will say that I was watching closely the review on Mel Thompson as well as Just Buy the Makeup, and they both had a brush that was a prototype and it looked exactly like the MAC 242. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I was able to get in touch with the Rephr brand and ask them if they had any more that they would be willing to sell me. They immediately shot back an email stating that they could sell me a brush and that they would set up a shopping link, and I said, let's do it. And of course they sent that over, and immediately I was able to purchase a P21, which is a short shader brush. So I'll be reviewing that in this video, but it's going to have its own separate video because it's just that important to me. So let's get started on the Rephr brushes. I did read in the Fude subreddit that you do need to wash your brushes before you use them. This is my first time experience with Fude brushes, and I don't remember if I've ever washed any of my other brushes prior to use or not. I think I probably just wiped them off. I will be 100% honest with you. I'm a little lazy in that sense. I just pull it out of the cellophane and I use it. So I'm just gonna start off with each brush and then just give you my final thoughts on it. But just to preface this by saying, some of the video footage that you might see will contain the brushes having not been washed, and then other video or other footage that you see will be the brushes after they've been washed. So I kind of mishmashed them together. Okay, just love me through it anyways. If this is something that you find very useful, you can always hit that like button, and also let me know in the comments down below if you purchase natural bristle brushes and you wash your brushes before you use them, or if you don't. We'll start out with the Rephr 15. It's probably one of my most used brushes that I've noticed. I have used it in quite a few of my videos. It is flowered out great, and it does have a nice tip on it so that you can gently and easily buff into the crease. So this would be people with eyes that are nice and tiny lid spaces and they really want to buff into the crease, but don't have very much room to buff. before they would, you know, start getting into that brow area. The Rephr 12 brush, it's an outer V brush for me, and I find it to work really, really great for that reason. The next up is the P21. I'm not going to mention too much, but this brush is outstanding. It's amazing, and if Rephr is watching this, put it into production. I will have a dedicated video on this brush particularly. I am still waiting to hear back from the brand to see if they'll answer a couple questions that I can address in a future video for you guys. So the Rephr 16 brush is a bigger Tulip brush to it's like a sister Tulip brush to the Rephr 15, and it is probably more for prominent eyes such as myself. I do have slight hooded eyes, but I do have prominent eyes as well, so kind of have a decent amount of lid space, if you will, maybe a little bit more than normal, maybe, I don't know, yeah, sounds about right. And this works really great for buffing into the crease and getting a little bit more of that detail. But I think that once I wash it a couple more times, it will flower out and give me a nice, more diffused look in the crease as time goes on. But I've only washed these brushes, I think, once or twice now. So Rephr 1 brush was one of those brushes that I thought for sure I would find myself using a lot, like reaching for a lot, but I haven't reached for it all that often. And I think it might be due to the fact that I have a couple of other brands that have made a brush, hand paddle brush similar to this, and they carried it out and executed the brush a little bit better in my opinion. It is not the MAC 217 replacement that everybody talks about. I don't feel like it replaces the MAC 217. I think it would be like a sister to the 217. But I have other brushes that I reach for more often, but if I had to guess, yeah, it's a great brush. I don't have any issues with it. I just have other brushes that I reach for more often than that brush. The Rephr 14, and this is where I kind of go and circle back around, that I think this is basically the picking up and taking over of the MAC line when I say that, because when I see this Rephr 14, I see MAC 221, I see MAC 222, one of those brushes. It dupes this one, I feel like. I think I have a 221, and it's pretty close to this. And that's where I start to feel like that is what Rephr is doing. It is now bridging that gap of natural bristle brushes. And I know that that was a concern about in Christine's statement, that they don't boast anything of the type of goat hair that they use, and I have to say I would counter that statement with Wayne Goss doesn't tell you what kind of goat hair he uses. I don't see too much on Sonia G. Of course, I don't follow her as closely. And I know any of the other brushes that I've looked at on Beautylish don't give me any idea. Like my Smith Cosmetics, although they're not Fude, they would be, you know, a luxury brand. They don't tell me what kind of goat hair they use either. So that's probably just the norm more than it is not the norm. The Rephr 02, again, like I mentioned before, this is bridging the gap between that MAC 239 and you know, the natural bristle brushes. This looks like it's going to be an excellent replacement to your MAC 239. So now that you can't purchase natural bristle brushes from MAC, Rephr would probably be my go-to, or at least a suggestion. I have a MAC 239 and a MAC 239 short handle, I believe, and I think that they work interchangeably beautifully, so that would definitely be my suggestion. The Rephr 03, great standard pencil brush. I will say where this one stands out to me is in the fact that it's not as scratchy as some of the other brushes that I have that are pencil shaped. Now, this is where I feel like you need to have different gradients of goat hair that you use in your brushes. So this might be something that, you know, you would want for sensitive eyes. But in some of these other brushes, you could probably back out and maybe not use the Psychoho hair, if that's what's being used, you know, some of that really fine chest hair that's, you know, really hard to find, you could probably back out and, you know, let that be a workhorse type of brush, not necessarily as soft on the eyes, but more of something that you're going to, you know, buff and blend in and really get the job done. Not all brushes that are soft aren't useful, and not all brushes that are soft are useful. So I have found that in my experience. Okay, I only picked up 2 face brushes. I do a lot of my face makeup work with sponges, so I don't have a lot of use for an extensive amount of face brushes. Most of my use for brushes are in the eye brushes, because when I'm doing clients and I have different types of eye shapes, it's really helpful to have different, you know, sizes of blending brushes, different styles of brushes. That's when I really, you know, I see the benefit in it. So I picked up 2 brushes. I picked up the Rephr 17 and the Rephr 18, and I will state I don't have any footage of the Rephr 18. It came in just a few days ago, and I don't have any intentions of washing the brush anytime soon. And when I do wash the brush, I am going to put a brush guard on it, because I don't want mine flowering out at all. I bought it specifically for the tulip shape to go underneath the eye and to lightly press in powder. So I have no intentions for this to, you know, to flower out or anything like that. I want it to stay just like I got it out of the cellophane package. The 17, I did use it when I got it out of the package. I was like, this is gonna take like 2 hours to get my, you know, foundation buffed in. But I will say this, it didn't take that long, and the application that it gives, flawless. It gave, it's like erased my pores. I use primarily the same foundation every single time, so I can really give you guys the, you know, the real skinny on how a brush performs in comparison to a sponge. This one takes the cake. I want to say, I wanted to be on your guys' side with the whole, you know, they just are engineers and they don't know what they're talking about, but they have bridged a gap that I feel like we need bridged. The Rephr 17 is kind of like a flat top kabuki. I know this has got to be at least side coho hair. I don't think it's that exquisite, you know, first shave or whatever, first harvest of goat hair, and it's the finest of the finest. I think it's probably just really good side coho hair. So side by coho is the chest hair, so that's what I think it probably is. If it's side coho and softer and more delicate hair than of this so coho, and it being rare and expensive, I don't see that being this. Of course it was, I think it was $48. This brush is $48. I think it was the most no, I own a Marc Jacobs brush that's more expensive than this, and it definitely does not compete. It's definitely not like the shoulder hair or anything like that. I mean, we are talking about, it's got to be a chest hair. It's very fine. It's very, very soft, and I wasn't sure if I should be using it with cream products or not, because traditionally I don't think goat hair is used for creams and emollients, but the shape lends me to believe that you would use it with a cream product, so that's what I did. Hopefully I haven't ruined the brush. It applies product beautifully though, guys, and I have nothing really bad to say other than I do think they could probably save some money and make a few of their brushes more workhorse. So use some of that shoulder hair, you know, some of the hair that's less desirable, I guess you might say, but it's going to be more of a workhorse for you and sustain the test of time. Like, I bet you anything if they made the Rephr 02 shoulder hair or something like that, because of the way and the nature of how you would use the brush, it wouldn't bother you packing on product that way, and that could be a cost savings to them So maybe another continuous improvement for them, but it looks like the type of hair that they use is standard throughout all of their brushes, which is great. That's standard. I think that they would really benefit from varying the types of brush hairs that they use for their brushes. I would agree with Temptalia's hesitation to review a brand that really didn't do a very good job marketing themselves. So my experience with the Rephr company was great. I didn't have any issues. They kept me informed the entire time of my order. They really made me feel like I was a customer and I stood out to them, so I really appreciated that. Also, with their extremely fast response time upon request of the P21, I was very impressed with that. So like I said, no complaints there. I think this brand is going to bridge the gap between the old MAC brushes that used to be made of natural bristle brush hairs and the the new style of luxury type brushes that we find ourselves buying, like Charlotte Tilbury, I want to say Marc Jacob, but they're just expensive. They use synthetic. Wayne Goss, Tom Ford, Haki Hodo, Cheeky Hodo, those types of brands. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching this. If you found this helpful, then give it a thumbs up and make sure that you subscribe so that you can catch weekly content that I put out for you. And I can't wait to see you guys in my next video. Bye.